Hello, everybody. It is the Football 360 show, the fastest hour of football talk on the planet. Tuesday, what is today? The 13th? Tuesday, May 13th. Time flying on by.
Yep.
I am JP Rock, as the screen says right there. You can catch me on X and Instagram, JP Rock MO, and JP Rock Scout U on Instagram. And he is Matt Bierman. Matt, where can people find you?
Elite Football on X and Elite Football Academy on Instagram.
And what a great Tuesday. Just beautiful weather outside. Looks like we might actually be coming into springtime, although we might just go right to summertime.
90 degrees a day or two from now.
Yeah, it's going to be like 90 degrees, but I'll take it. I've decided I'm going to embrace, after all this rain.
Well, yeah, but then there's going to be pop-up thunderstorms and more rain.
Oh, see,
right?
Yeah. No jinxes. No jinxes.
Well, we got through it last night.
We did.
That was a blessing. I mean, it rained right. We started setting up at what, 5:15?
Yep.
5 o'clock.
It's
stopped right before we tested.
We've been lucky. I know Saturday I was in Kansas City for the second KC Varsity Combine, which was sunny and about 75, which kind of spoiled me. And then last night, a little bit of sprinkles when I arrived. I was actually cruising down the highway, and like the skies opened up, and we got drenched. And then by the time we got to DeSmet, it was okay. We were doing good. Got out of the car, a few sprinkles. Everybody was in line. Things started moving. A little bit of sprinkles, and then we made it through it, right? Everything
8:27 it started raining.
And we see by my calculations it was 8:28 when it really started
coming.
Yeah,
it was like a few drops, and
right.
And I'm like, it started coming.
And I'm like, okay.
But it wasn't horrible, even at that.
I'm like, okay, Matt, they don't need these extra 2 minutes.
Yeah, I know. We kept the speech a little shorter than normal.
I was going to say, by the time you pulled everybody to the 50-yard line for the speech, it opened up and started coming
out. Numbers to report: 28 different college programs are there. FCS through NAIA and a few. I think it's one JUCO.
Yeah.
D2, D3. 28, and then there's 45, 50 coaches there total. But 28 colleges, that's a solid number.
It's a solid number, and I got to tell you what, at this time of year, if you are listening, if you are a parent, if you are a player, if you do not go to an event that has college coaches there watching you, you are wasting your time and your parents' money.
Yep.
Okay? It is that simple, because it is not for you. It is for them, and them being whoever's holding it. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's just how it is. It's, and you, I mean, you can talk on it better than I can, because
it's this time of year, you're in an evaluation period.
Yep.
So I watched younger guys, 8th and 9th grade guys, go talk to coaches. I watched juniors, going to be seniors, go talk to coaches. I had a young man before text me and say, "Hey, can you introduce me to some coaches?" I said, "Yes." And I said, "But if you do well, they're going to see you."
Right.
And I swear to you, it was like probably 5 minutes into like just one-on-ones, and there's probably 8, 9 coaches standing on the sideline, and a guy threw a ball right down the sideline, and he dove and caught it, and then right in front of a bunch of coaches. About 5 minutes later, same thing happens. He does it again. So then I saw a coach grab him and talk to him. And I thought, that's a really organic way to have a conversation. Yeah, you can walk up and introduce yourself, which is the best way to do it.
That is the way to go.
And I was telling kids, like, look, that's what these guys are here for. Go talk to them. They're coaches. They love, they're in the people business. They want to talk. You may be a good fit. You may not. And one of the kids said, it's like asking out a really good looking girl, right? What's the answer if you're not dating her? The answer is no already. So if you walk up and you talk to them and they acknowledge you exist, like, okay, at least there's a chance, right? So at that point, the answer is not no, it's a maybe, right? So then then you start the process of communicating with those people, and you kind of let the chips fall where they may. But the cool thing is you may see them this weekend at the KC Varsity Combine, and then you're going to see them for sure at the Lindenwood Combine. So you're going to have 2 more opportunities to see a lot of the same people, and they get to see you.
And you're laying the groundwork. You're building a relationship. And so many guys were like, that mentality you talked about where they're like, oh well, I'm going to wait and see if they come up and talk to me. No, you have to take the initiative. You have to go talk to them because whether they're going to recruit you or not, it impresses them. And other coaches that they know, they'll remember. And if they know they're looking for guys, they'll tell them about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how this whole thing works.
And so just so you know how it works too, like if you watch these guys walking around with spreadsheets and like notes, and they have different colors and things like, there's groups of guys that they're already looking at, right? Position groups, you know, like that maybe they may be recruiting themselves. There might just be people individually that they're responsible for recruiting wise that are like targets for them, but they're also there to discover people as well. So there's kind of like a multitude of things going on at the same time. And I think unfortunately a lot of kids get there or do not come. I mean, we probably had a few kids bail because of rain last night, which, you know, shame on them because it ended up not raining and literally a drop versus any of the time that mattered. We tested in fairly, I mean, the Mets turf is great. We tested in a really nice environment.
Yep.
Good crowd. I mean, a lot of people there, a lot of coaches, a lot of high school coaches.
Yes.
There was, I think, 35, 40 high school coaches that represented up at the recruiting fair, which I think is, again, that's a really good sign. Guys are out working for their kids, and the college coaches are coming in, definitely wanting to learn about them.
Right, exactly. And St. Louis is a hub. It's a hub for recruiting. All you got to do is look at the guys picking up offers to realize that. And there were some guys there who college coaches didn't know about. They didn't have them on their spreadsheet. And guess what? They found out about them. One being Demetrius Thompson from Clayton Brentwood, right? Who just opened. I mean, he had a group of coaches down there, and I saw it steadily build as he went up and down the line. And this is what Demetrius did. He's a defensive end. He's an edge guy. He played every defensive line position. He went down the line and then back up it and won every battle handily.
And what's interesting is he's a kid who comes in and trains, and he's used to that environment, right? So he's not this. He didn't show up. Okay, so 2 examples. He ran a really good 40, but he is a guy you can tell has not probably spent a ton of time working on his 40. He's probably done some track starts, things like that. Not a 40 start, right?
Yeah.
And so he's looking pretty good on that, but unfortunately, he you know, for him, he's just a really good athlete. So unfortunately, it did not stop him from running a good 40. He ran like a 4.7 on the laser, which is crazy at his size. But where it counts as far as like, because he's athletic enough, whether he runs a 4.8 or a 4.6 doesn't really matter.
Correct.
He's athletic enough, but he shows up, and so he can only get better on the 40. But he shows up, he's well versed on how to do one-on-ones, and he's getting better technique. He's working with Rayshawn Golden at our facility privately as well as at the groups. So he's not going to back down in that environment. He knows what he's doing. He's confident. And that's just scratching the surface for him. So you and I have talked about, I think he's going to have a really big summer, and somebody's going to get a steal on him.
Somebody's going to get a steal, or he's going to blow up, and he's going to land right where he's supposed to land, because he is really, really talented. I mean, you want to talk about natural athlete. You're right. You know, he's not a speed track guy. He's a weight track guy. And I think he's in the running. He could win a state championship in the throws. But man, he just absolutely killed it. And he's just going to get better. He is. Somebody's going to get a player, and he's a guy. And, you know, I don't say this lightly about people, but he's a guy who stays on that trajectory, has a shot to play on Sundays. He's that talented. 6'4", 215. I don't think I'm talking out of school. I think he ran like a 4.73 laser.
4.73.
40 defensive end, edge rusher. College coaches listening. I know the eyes on the college coaches were like, you know, size of the moon. So we'll get back to talking about that. But right now we are joined on the guest line by Mr. Bogdan Susan. Did I say it correct?
That's correct. Can you guys hear me all right?
Perfect. Everything's perfect. That was my biggest question for you, was how to pronounce your name. So
you know, the boy named Sue, Johnny Cash song. That's me.
There you go.
There you go. So perfect. So go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your background, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Sure. You know, as you said, Bogdan Susan, I'm an attorney. I've been practicing law in Columbia since 1992. And I don't know, Matt, you might remember, I was around went to college at Mizzou, worked as a bouncer in college, and then afterwards went to law school. And, some of the guys that I knew from my college days, played football at Mizzou and had a little problem, right? And so
Yeah.
like, hey, you're a lawyer now, help us out. So ended up representing a few athletes, and then sort of started doing more and more. And over the last 30 years, I've been involved in, a lot of the high profile cases coming out of Mizzou. I've been representing the student athletes with NCAA investigations, defending them, when the NCAA knocks on your door. I've dealt with, everything from changes through the conference changes, Title IX, and then obviously now with name, image, and likeness representation and all those changes in college sports. So I've seen a lot over 30 years. So
it's changing by the day, correct? I mean, it's just like it never ceases to amaze us. Like the conversation we have about this stuff, it's a new day every day.
Yeah, very much so. I had dinner with Coach Drink, and he was talking about how, the old school coaches, Pinkel, Saban, those guys would plan, and you probably remember this, would plan their calendar 365 days in advance. I mean, literally, they would know what they're doing. But now, coaches like Coach Drinkwitz, they have to respond and adapt to changes every day, right? Literally now with the House settlement.
Oh, we lost him. That's the perfect thing we want to talk to about the House settlement.
That's your
real.
Sorry, yeah, we just lost you. Okay, we heard House settlement, and then it kind of cut out.
You got us, Bogdan? Do you have us? I don't think he does.
Joe, bring him back up, Joe.
See if
but I think this will be a very interesting conversation because.
Are we back?
Yeah, we're back. We're back.
And we're back live.
So, we heard you talking about the House settlement, and then it cut out.
Well, we have Bogdan, but I don't think Bogdan has us.
Yeah, it is.
There we go.
Oh,
hello. You got us?
Hello.
I guess let's go ahead and see if we can re-get
the
that.
joys of live.
Yeah.
Shows, yeah. JP, you're much more adept at doing that.
I don't know nothing about nothing, but yeah.
we'll have Joe back there working hard to get it
Here
figured
we go.
out.
I think Bogdan is back with us, perhaps. We'll see.
Remember we had you remote one time. We had the same type.
I was on the beach at on the Gulf Shores, and that happened to me. Bogdan, you there?
I'm there. I don't know what happened. I couldn't get the link on my computer for some reason. Technology is not my fan today, and then. I don't know what happened, so I apologize for that. But I think we're just talking about NIL and then the
settlement,
coaches,
the House settlement.
Yeah, exactly, which is still pending.
Yeah, one of the things we talk about, and we've been talking quite some time about this. I think it's going to be really interesting. Would love to get your perspective too, because we're hearing, I think there's like a really interesting thing brewing with this settlement because. You have obviously there's some future ramifications with how players will get paid. There's remedies for them to pay, past athletes, but then it's setting up what I think is going to be a really interesting fight because when they start talking about putting in place a panel, a non-biased, party to judge something over $600, whether it's fair market value or not. What I've been reading is that there's lawyers lined up that are going to be nailing them left and right with complaints and lawsuits pertaining to that because, as I would see it, isn't the fair market value already kind of been set for student athletes in college? This isn't like a new thing. So I would like, kind of get your perspective because one, when I hear it's an unbiased accounting firm employed by the NCAA, that my alarm bells do go off because who's representing the athletes? They're not paying for it. Who's paying for this? And I think, usually when you track the money, things that are intended to be unbiased sometimes begin to take shape of what those paying for it want it to be, right? And I think there's definitely a vested interest for the universities to collect the money that has left the doors and went to the collectives.
Yeah.
I think I think a lot of people are not really talking about that, but you can see the fight. There's going to be a fight over those dollars, and hopefully the athletes don't get screwed over in the process.
Oh, no doubt. That's a great question. I mean, back in your day, there was an actual rule in the books that the only thing that you could get from an institution without being subject to regulation was fruit, nuts, and bagels, right? And
Hmm.
what you could put on a bagel, that was in dispute, right? So if we couldn't agree on butter or jam, how are we going to agree on these things, right? And you're right. I mean, it's the NCAA trying to keep control and justify its own existence, right? They make billions of dollars off naming and licensing rights, that are derived from the efforts of student athletes. And the idea is that they're trying to create some sort of equal system or parity, right? And you know how it is with coaches, right? They're always looking for an angle to compete. Mizzou passed their NIL legislation early, right, which gave us an advantage to sign high school athletes. But now you're looking at what happens if this House settlement comes through and we have a fixed salary cap, right? No SEC school is going to stand for that. They're not going to sit there and say, great, we're all equal, right? So this NCAA organization is designed to say, prevent a Mizzou, for example, of having its number one donor pay, $100,000 for one billboard, right? Because, say this kid signs with us and then in Alabama, well, Alabama's going to be mad and they're going to say, well, that's not worth 100,000, right? They're just paying to play, right? So
Hmm.
you're just seeing this starting, and it's just like they're wanting to get back and start regulating things, and it's crazy the stuff that I've dealt with from an investigatory standpoint. They show up the night before. You got, the school calls me and says, hey, represent our student athletes, which is all allowed under the rules if their eligibility is at stake. Then I'm sit there and meet with my clients, and I do a lot of criminal defense work, right? And typically there you have notice of what the evidence is against you, right? You have notice of the allegations. You have a chance to prepare to answer truthfully. With the NCAA, they don't tell you. And not only do you have to answer truthfully, but if they think your answer is incomplete, then you're subject to being disqualified based upon lack of candor. So I could just see you identified a great issue, tons of stuff. Like, how do we prepare these kids to deal with these things? How are they supposed to know what a person wants to pay for their value? How is the value in at Mizzou different than, say, one in Tennessee, right? It's
Right.
nuts. I don't know how they're going to do it.
So, and how do they prevent themselves from getting in hot water over, who's to say what fair market value is? Like in the United States, someone, what someone pays you is fair market value for your car, for a deal. Deals are done every
job.
day in
Yeah.
business for a job. I just think it's very interesting. I mean, I don't know any other, and you probably do. I don't know if you guys know. Is there any other system like that that's not involved in some sort of collective bargaining where someone's valuing what a group of people or an individual's value is, like other than a boss or a company paying someone? Like, I don't, like, is this commonplace, like where a third party comes in and says, nah, you're not worth 100,000? I don't, like, it's very unique. And one of the things I was reading about it is they said there's some, I don't know if it's antitrust, but there's some sort of, anti-commerce component to it. And they said,
Sure.
even though it's coming out of the courts as a part of the settlement, it doesn't mean it's legal. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But they said there's a lot of instances where things like this come out of, decisions and arbitration, and then they turn around and it ends up being illegal. They can't do it, and which I think would be quite laughable after all the time and money they've spent on this case, right? But so yeah,
Sure.
I don't know. Is that normal for someone to tell another group of people, like, you're not going to be able to pay that amount of money? I don't know if that exists.
No, heck no, it's not normal. I mean, it's whatever leverage people with talent have in our society, right? I mean, if you do really well at your job as an accountant, right, and another accounting firm notices you're doing great, wants to pay you more, you go to your boss and say, hey, I got a chance to leave here. They want to pay me more. But it also, too, is going to have a chilling effect on our donors, right? So, the punishment for a donor is not losing eligibility, right? Because they're not playing, right? But they may be separated from the school, not be able to purchase tickets, or own a suite. So it's going to scare donors away if they want to, pay some kid for NIL, represent, likeness, and then the NCAA comes in and says, no, that's not legit. And not only are we going to, take away this kid's eligibility, but we're also going to prevent you from being part of the school support system. It's a
Wow.
scary thing. Yeah. And I don't know how they would ever, like, again, it's like, where else do you have subject to being part of a collective bargaining agreement, right? Like, with the NFL and NBA, and where they have salary caps and things like that. But right, those players have representation, they have a union, they have collective bargaining,
Right.
they agree on these things, they get benefits. But here, it looks like, these kids could be floating on their own, having to pay money to hire attorneys, or if the school pays for them because it's eligibility, but still go back to this scary process of defending yourself over something you may not even understand, when all you want to do is be the best at whatever sport you choose to play.
Yeah, because JP and I have talked about this numerous times. I mean, it is not it's not a bad idea to think, let's say $20 million or whatever the base salary or the salary pool, if you will, for the athletics department as they pay it out through this agreement. When there's well documented cases of $40 million last year being spent by the collective at Ohio State or somewhere in that range, right?
No doubt.
Like, at the reality of it is like, back in the day when we're all in school, the full ride scholarship was kind of the base layer, right? Well, now its base layer is scholarship plus the revenue share, and then the icing on the cake is the ability to have NIL. And if they start to limit that, I just think it's going to cause a lot of problems, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what this whole lawsuit was about to begin with, and now they want to put parameters back on and gain control. And I don't know that it doesn't solve all of our NIL issues and all of our transfer portal stuff, but it does solve an issue of taking care of people that need to be taken care of, that are producing a lot of money for a lot of other people that should have been paid a long time ago. They weren't. And so now we're seeing this, and it's like this huge snapback effect of like, hey, might be able to get a little control, but let's not forget the reason why they're in this position is because they screwed over a bunch of people, and they did it for years. They got caught. They were told to change. They didn't change. And now they're being told by the court that they're going to have to do X, Y, and Z. I personally, again, this is way more your expertise. I would love to see him go to court. I'd love to see all the discovery, all the stuff come out about all the issues that they've done and all the instances they've done over the years, and then watch them pay the true penalty they should pay, because it would wipe them out, right? It would absolutely wipe them out. And I just think it's very interesting. And I don't know, and I haven't kept up on it, but I do know a couple of the smaller schools got really upset when they found out how much they were on the hook for this settlement when they did not partake. And they're suing as well. They're countersuing and saying, no, we're not part of this. Like, we didn't benefit from you guys, paying, or not paying athletes. You guys kept the money. We didn't get it. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out, because one of the figures I read is like, predominantly the money is going to come from the group of 5 and the FCS level schools through a garnishment of their conference money. So these poor schools that never benefited and their athletes aren't part of the class are going to be paying for the mistake. So I think that's going to end up putting a huge fracture in their system. And when the big boys break away and do their thing, like JP and I always talking about, we think the day is coming when there's going to be
corporations are eventually going to take over like the athletic programs, is what we kind of feel. Just because, I mean, how sustainable long-term do you think the NCAA is? Like you said, they're trying to regain some power, but at some point, just everything you guys are just talking about, how sustainable is that in today's climate?
I don't think it's very sustainable. I mean, I think at some point, like you said, the Power 5, now Power 4 conferences can just say the heck with it. We're going to opt out and control our own destiny based upon our own agreements, between conference heads, or create a new conference head, kind of like Roger Goodell. Like, I don't see them doing that. I think too, it's like, we were talking earlier, about restricting these kids' rights to make money. Like, think how hard these kids work, right? Quarterbacks, right? The time those people put in, right, to get where they go. And then, if I had, a quarterback as a client for an NIL, and they received a NIL deal that I worked for them to get from a business, and then the NCAA said, no, that's no good. first thing I would do is go to federal court and slap an injunction on them and say, like, you can't do this, right? You're restricting this person's ability to make money, right, with some arbitrary set of facts that you understand. Like you said first at the very beginning question, Matt, is like, who are these people? What authority do they have? What is their criteria for the decision making? So ultimately, I think, I think the conferences are going to sit there and say, we don't need this. And I think this is the NCAA's way of saying, we still want to be relevant and get the revenues from your licensing rights because we're going to exert some control here. So we're showing our value, right? But I don't necessarily think that that's going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
It's really a unfortunate situation because they could have done things but years ago. But back to your earlier point, they were worried about what, bagels? They were worried about schmears and all that kind of stuff. Like, come on, man. Like they wouldn't let people work in the summer unless they were monitoring what they did. Like, just it's an unbelievable power grab that they had for all those years, and now, unfortunately for them, I think it is coming to an end. And I know there's other lawsuits, pending. Did you guys both see? And I don't know. Again, this would be way more in your professional expertise than ours, but the University of Kentucky has now formed their athletic department, formed it as an LLC, separate. I guess I don't know all the details of it, but one of the things I was reading was like, hey, this is setting themselves up to bring on private equity money to invest in their organization, if you will.
Yeah, that I did not see that, but I heard there were things like that happening. But yeah, I mean, you're seeing, for example, my wife works for a startup company called Equipment Share, right? 10 years ago, these two brothers started it, at Startup Weekend, and now they have 6,500 employees. And a few years ago, I took them to their very first Mizzou football game, despite growing up, minutes away. And now their name is on the field right next to the Shelter State Insurance, right? And, so you're seeing now, businesses being for the first time. I think that was last year that they put business names on the field. But yeah, I mean, licensing rights for the stadium names, you're going to see more and more of that, right? That's just a natural thing because live television, sports, as you know, is an extremely valuable product because otherwise you have to catch people, that people record or stream things and you don't have the same commercial value. So I think it's a done deal. I mean, I think it has to head that way because it's a valuable thing. I mean, look at the money coaches are making. For example, that was one of the things that started this, right? I remember Larry Smith telling me he was making $600,000, right, when he was coaching, right? I thought that is huge, right?
Yeah.
I think you pay your video guys that now, right?
Right.
So yeah.
That's a poor page assistant for
Yeah.
a P4
I
school,
know,
right?
unbelievable.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like you say, the naming rights, all the things going on in the stadiums around the country, like you can see it's becoming much more professional, right, at the college level, which I think the demand is obviously there, and football shoots really well, right? I remember I went to a Gatorade conference years ago, and I actually got to listen to Bo Jackson speak, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Very interesting guy. But one of the things that the Gatorade people said that I just thought was very interesting, they showed examples of different games, professional sports, or even like international, like professional sports, like soccer, cricket. They showed baseball, obviously basketball, and then they showed football. And they explained why football was so valuable to them and what their strategy was on the sideline with like the Gatorade carts and they started explaining the number of times that you get the pause in the game and the shots to the sideline and how that all works and the Gatorade towels and all. It was so interesting, but there was no other game. And they broke it down by like literally like impressions in a game and minutes per game that their logo was being shown around the athletes and then what that equated to for them. And I just remember thinking back, like, wow, like that is crazy. And then you see like the advent of like soccer with like they have the video boards around the edge of the field because they're trying to do the same thing, but they don't have the viewership in the United States for that, right? So to make a huge impact. So I do think like, I think that it will even expand further in college football. I think it's going to become even more monetized. And so again, to think that the student athletes don't share in that would be ludicrous. And then
Yeah.
they're going to put some arbitrary, like, oh, we can, you know what? I would love to see the players when they unionize to then have a arbitrary board that says, hey, are you getting paid fair market value for your sponsorships? Because if you're not, then you owe us some money. And if you're getting paid too much, we want more of it, right? I like, is that fair? Like, I mean, it should go both ways, right?
For sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, that that's not how they're going to set that up, I bet.
No, I think you're right about that. Yeah, I mean, there's so many issues that are developing every day, and it's fascinating. But we all know, us on this podcast, how hard these players work, the time they put in. This whole concept of spoiled scholarship athletes. I mean, there are times where some of these kids didn't have food on Sunday if the dining hall was closed, that they couldn't get help from their parents. And you say that to this day and age to people, they're like, oh, that's crazy. No, that's not true. I had to work my way through school. So did I, right? Did every crap job you can imagine, right? But, I also didn't have to put in all that time, and be unable to work either. Well,
yeah. And I think people don't understand, like, you take Brady Cook as a good example. So he's a guy that I've trained for many years. He's, since he's been a little kid in second grade, but, and of course people are going to say, oh yeah, well, that's what he accepted. But when he accepted a scholarship, University of Missouri, he also didn't have, didn't sign up to be, he's a college kid, like all the other college kids. And some of the things that happened to him in his career, like, just people being just not nice and just being, like he doesn't go out, right? He can't be to have the normal college kid, because everybody's thinking that guy's the life of the party. And I'm sure there's still plenty of guys, like when we were in school, that went out and had a good time. But if you're elevated to a certain level, you become a target when you go out, rather than some of the people are wanting to be around. Like, there's just people that are jerks. And like, he gave a story the other day about, and I had never even heard this, but somebody had, like, he had ordered, or someone in the family had ordered him some cookies for his birthday. He opens the cookies, and there's a note, like, from some kid or person, whoever, and like vulgar, like just not nice, just like a total bad move. Now that kid didn't realize Brady had a deal with that said cookie company, and he just called the owner and said, hey, look at this, right? And so next thing you know, I think that kid no longer worked in the cookie industry. But those that's the way it goes. But I think there's so much to all of this, and I just don't understand, like, where it's going to stop, where it's going to end. I know that hopefully the athletes get the upper hand at some point, or at least an equal hand in it. And guys like yourself are definitely help fight the fight, because those kids and families don't know. They have no idea, right? How would they know? So I'm sure you're quite busy down there with all the stuff going on. So
Bogdan, where can people reach you? Kids that are interested in finding out more, about, getting representation.
Oh, sure. Just email me at right now. You can just email me at Bogdan or BOGDAN at midmissourilawyers.com, one word. Or just reach out, I'll respond right away. So I'll be happy.
We'll put that in the show notes too.
Yep, we'll put it in the show notes. But man, there's so much to ask you, and we're waiting for the number one kid in the state is getting ready to make his college announcement.
No doubt.
So we're gonna jump to that. Unfortunately, Mizzou's not going to be part of that mix. But yeah. I mean, there's stuff to ask you about. I know, there's NIL stuff for high school kids. They're getting ripped off, all this stuff. So, would like to have you back if you'd be interested to talk some more.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah,
anytime. We really appreciate it.
Yep, really appreciate your time. Bogdan
Thank you.
Susan, right?
Yes.
There you go. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, that was really good. I mean, we really could have spent a whole hour talking.
Well, here's the thing. I like his delivery. I like where he's just like his experience. I mean, he's bridging the gap,
right?
All those years of coaches and all the experience, and he's still relevant working with the guys today that they have. I think someone like that in your corner is going to be a good asset.
Oh, without
for
question.
Sure. I'm the number of families, like, you go from just wanting an offer to, okay, now you're getting ready to commit and go to one of the biggest schools in the country. You better have representation.
Oh,
right?
it's crazy. Yeah. So for those of you who are watching this live stream, there's Nixa. We're down in Nixa, Missouri. On the screen is what you see. Jackson Cantwell, the number one player in the state for sure, in the 2026 class, and considered by some the number one player in the country by some fan sites, is getting ready to make his college announcement. And
His
it's
mom looks nervous.
yeah, just a little bit. He's limited his schools to Georgia, Oregon, Miami, and Ohio State. And I know the fan sites like to keep the fans' interest by saying, "Oh, he's leaning this way, he's leaning that way." But I'm not big on being a crystal ball guy. No, we're good, Joe. I'm not big on being a crystal ball guy. We really just want to, I really just want to know where you're going. I don't need to know who you're leaning with, none of that stuff, because none of it really matters. So that's them on screen. When Jackson's ready to announce, when he makes his announcement, we'll go ahead and pop the sound up as his superintendent, Dr. Loden, is doing all that stuff. And I don't know how many of these you've been to. I know you've been to a few.
Oh yeah.
But usually it's the administrators got to say their piece, and then sometimes coaches do, and sometimes the kindergarten teacher has to get out there, and their next door neighbor. And
I went to one for Miles McVay, and I got to get up and talk on his behalf.
They had you up there. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got to give the speech, and I was not dressed in a shirt and tie like this man, but I got up. It was really cool. They did a really, really good one. Little did he know he committed to Alabama, and then a year later we have a
correct. There's head coach John Perry's up there talking. I'm sure he's going to introduce Jackson, but I mean that's the important thing. All this stuff, this is great, and it's everybody's moment, but it's really just about Jackson, and really they're few and far between the kind of athletes it come through Missouri that are that kind of national recruit.
Correct.
Dorial Green Beckham was one. I know ESPN had him on their show like live in the morning, and that was interesting. And went to Mizzou. And I'm trying to think of anybody else.
I mean,
Sheldon was that kind
Sheldon
of a guy,
was,
but they weren't.
Blaine was, but that was a little pre this type of stuff. I mean, now, like back then, ESPN brought a game to Parkway West to watch them play, and then of course Blaine was hurt, and it was really wild. They painted the field, and they had these extra lights they brought in. This is pre-turf because it was just grass back then.
The good
old days.
Did Blaine play?
No, he was hurt.
That's what I was.
He was hurt the week before. Hurt his, I think it was his shoulder.
I thought that's what that was. Yeah,
I think it was collarbone maybe.
Right.
But he was committed to go to Mizzou. He's an Elite 11 champion at that point. Like, I mean, they were at that point. They had to be pretty careful with him because he was dinged up. There was no need. But I'm sure ESPN was not happy.
No,
because you spent all that money to have it, and then
all that.
And then Tyler Gabbert came in and played, but West was completely deflated. Parkway North put it on him.
Yeah. And then what? And then what were they going to do at that point? They couldn't pull out.
Yeah, right. No, it was on the schedule. It was a national game, and
correct. But of course, Jackson Cantwell, friend of the show, has been on here. One of the best guests that we've had.
Yeah.
Just really, just really good.
Well, what's your gut?
See, my gut would say Georgia.
That's
I think he wants to play
too.
in the South.
Yeah.
I know, like as of this morning, people are saying Miami. Could be.
I would say this: wherever the best track and football program for him, whoever had the best sell on that, because he's a national level shot put thrower, who's pretty much a national record.
Oh yeah. So what I would say is he just went and took an unofficial visit after taking an official visit to Georgia this past weekend. So that's one of two things: either he's trying to make sure Georgia's it, or somebody else has moved ahead and he's giving them one last shot to make sure he's making the right decision, picking Miami.
Well, and back to our conversation earlier, Bogdan, is like these are like big decisions now because he's going to sign NIL stuff before he gets onto campus, right? Before he gets on campus,
right?
Because because the rules we were talking about earlier with the House settlement, all that stuff is going to precede. So like that's after. So all this stuff he's doing is going to precede it. So they're talking about these, these guys and the money and where it's going to flow now. But something he brought up that I think was very interesting about the censoring and penalizing of alumni or whoever the donors.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you, in my opinion, that sounds a lot like behind the back to what my original point. The schools are fed up with the money leaving and going to the collectives.
Yep.
So that's their way to scare the collectives. But that's, again, someone just starts to peel back the onion. Sounds awful predatory and a lot of
Intimidating, yeah.
intimidating collusion type
Mhm.
behavior, because if a school says, hey, they want to incentivize the money because they now have $20 million that they've never budgeted before that they have to pay. They still have all the same costs they had the year ago. And they're not going to cut 20 million out of the budget, right? So they are in a situation, unfortunately, that's going to try and scare off, or bring home the donors and scare off the lone wolves that want to, do deals with kids. Who gets hurt in the end? The kids,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that rule, I was unaware of that. Like when he said that, I thought, uh-oh,
Yeah.
because I'm telling you, a couple people I've talked to that are big time donors at schools that I know that give money to various schools have kind of sang the same song about giving the money and this and that. And a lot of people don't realize, like, like Mizzou, Illinois, Kansas, all these guys, they get money from donors to pay for the kids to be on scholarship.
Mhm.
Okay. And so because you just assume it's just like a sunk cost because they're at the school and it's just a trade. The way it's written is they have to be able to, they pay for it, right? Which, again, come on, it's a school. It's got how many thousands of kids, and you're
Correct.
talking about
Yeah.
a small number of guys that you're scholarshiping.
Right.
So they do have to pay for it some way, shape, or form. So then they do fundraising, and then they give access to tickets. They give access to the coach. They give access to special days and times that you can be there, golf events, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So they benefit from it, and the kids have to be around it, but they don't benefit. So again, I think that's where lawyers lawyers get a bad name, but I'm going to tell you, especially into something like this, they need that protection and they need people in their corner, like Bogdan was saying. And that's a guy that sounds like, again, I hadn't really thought much through on this. If I'm going to go with someone that's going to be doing it, and I want someone that's been in a college town that's dealing with athletes, right?
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
there
And
is
his list is long of what things that he's
Yeah.
dealt with regarding athletes and
the stories he has, I can only
yeah. I
imagine.
mean, I wonder if we could even get into some of that stuff. But
Yeah.
he's like you said, he's represented
There's
Mizzou
Jackson's on the
athletes
stage.
through a lot of stuff. So let's go ahead and
big
throw
boy.
it to the sound, Joe, so we can hear what Jackson's going to do. It looks like he's going to make his announcement here.
Thank you guys for coming out.
Jackson
Means a lot
Cantwell,
for sure.
Dixon,
I
Missouri.
mean, this isn't going to be too long anymore. I just want to thank, a lot of people I can thank. I'm sure I'm going to forget some, so bear with me. But I want to thank all my coaches that have put effort into me from start to finish. I mean, especially Coach Perry and Coach Medley. I mean, this has
Producer
been a really important
Joe
time in my
doing a
life, and I
fabulous
really
job,
Thank them for being
by
there
the
for
way.
me. I want to thank all my teachers that have spent time with me. I want to thank all my teammates, especially
Appreciate
my
it, Joe.
trench guys. A lot of them right here. Love those guys. I'd like to thank Drew and Kyle for making this process go a lot smoother. I'd like to thank all the Nixa fans, really anybody with Nixa Athletics or a fan of Nixa Athletics. I mean,
Jackson's
it means a
dad,
lot.
former
They show up
Mizzou
every Friday. They show
track
up,
athlete.
really for everything.
Olympian.
And it's meant a
Olympian,
lot to this community,
as you can
for
still
sure.
see. Looks like he could get out there.
And most importantly, I'd like to thank my mom and my dad because they've been there for me throughout this whole process. They've done a fantastic job. I love them to death. I mean,
He's so
that's
mature.
just,
Yep.
it means more than you guys could ever know. And I mean, this has been a long time coming for sure. But I think at this time, I'd like to announce that I will be committing to University of Miami.
Yep. So the fan sites were right. Somebody was sleeping outside his bedroom window.
Yeah. Wow.
Paying attention.
When was the last time a big time recruit
From Missouri.
from Missouri went to
This
Miami?
doesn't really fit, but thank you guys.
I'm
Jeff
I can't-
Thomas.
Yeah, I guess that would be East St. Louis. Yeah, that'd be it.
Thank you
Wow.
guys.
All
I
right, well,
appreciate it. And that happens to me at
congratulations
all, so
to
I'm not gonna wear
to
that.
Jackson. I mean, you can't beat Miami, right? As if you're a young guy, the weather. Thank you, Joe. That was great.
Yes.
So Nixa, Missouri offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell, 6'8", 300 pounds, one of the top track athletes in the country. Also listed as the top football recruit in the state of Missouri, and one of the top 3 I think I've seen most from fan sides, headed to the University of Miami, and Miami
Wow.
Hurricane. That's pretty wild. And I know that the University of Georgia. Now, Mizzou fans got to be feeling pretty good because he didn't pick Georgia.
Yep.
And I wonder how much. And we're going to talk to him next week. He says he's going to join us next week. Obviously, couldn't join us today because of the time schedule. But I'm curious as to if that played into it. You know, knowing he's from Missouri.
Yeah.
You know, did he want to be at a rival SEC school? You know,
I tell you, Miami
face
is
that.
a different place than Dixon, Missouri, or St. Louis, Missouri,
Yes.
or Columbia, Missouri.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. I'd love to, when we talk to him, to find out like what it was. Now, that's the other thing. The locale is only part of it, because at the end of the day, you're in there, you're sequestered as a student athlete, like Bogdan was talking about. Like, you put in so much time and energy with practice and class. I mean, like, people would shudder if they looked at some of these guys' schedules, like what they do.
Yeah.
And then just, they're still getting paid. They shouldn't get paid. They shouldn't get to leave. They shouldn't get to again, you can leave your job. They're getting paid. Everybody can leave their job. It's okay when they leave theirs and do what they want to do. But the kids can't.
Right.
Again, because they're 18, but they can go fight in a war. They can't, but it's okay for when
look, just this past Saturday in Kansas City, and just last night at the football coaches deal. I mean, talking to guys who have already left to go, right? They left early to go join their colleges. They can't believe the difference and what they're having to deal with on a day-to-day basis so far. Now, school's out, I think now, or is about to be out, but
and then they'll go back for the summer and run all summer and lift all summer and practice.
Yeah, but they said they had no idea. And like, we were talking to Hoyt Gregory, who was helping out. He's like, and he said, well, number one, and it made me feel good, but he said the same thing to you. He's like, everything you and Matt have said has come true. And I'm like, yeah.
Well, we've done this for a little time. And so I think that's the beauty of what we like to do here. We want to talk about the realistic side of football, and what it is and what it isn't. And every bit of the process prepares you for the next step in the process, right? So, for instance, there's a lot of younger, really good athletes last night at the St. Louis Metro Coaches Association Combine, right? Plenty of coaches there to see them. They're gaining experience talking to coaches. They maybe left and didn't talk to anybody and then felt bad about it or nervous. Now they have another chance this weekend. They got another chance at Lindenwood. But maybe no one talked to them. Maybe no one said good job. Maybe whatever it is, right? But the reality of it is you have to look in the mirror and say, hey, have I worked my butt off to do this? Have I, did I put my best effort forward? Because some guys were just there to be there.
Right. And there was a kid who came up to me afterwards and said, I've worked really hard. I thought I really balled out, but I talked to the coaches, like you said. He's like, and they just didn't really, seem super interested. They were polite. I go, well, baby steps. You made that initial part. They're not, they weren't going to offer you right then and there. They've just met you for the first time. You're not on anybody's list. So now they know your name, baby steps. The other thing Hoyt said was he couldn't believe, and we've talked about this, the difference in the speed and strength of the players. And he's at Lindenwood University, and he didn't realize that, but that we've talked about that. And then we started talking about the training aspect. This is why you go to these things, these events like last night, the event like KC Varsity Combine coming up, so where you stand. And if you're going to come to events like this, you better train. If you want to play college ball, you better train. Because once you don't want to wait till you get there and realize, whoa,
And you come, you better get your reps. I saw last night, nameless, but remain nameless, multiple kids that come in and train that are younger, 8th and 9th grade guys, that were having older guys get pissed at them for jumping in line. But the reality of it is, if someone sits back, we talked about this at the Elite Football Combine with kids, just the mom that got upset because their kid wasn't getting reps. but he was pulling himself back in line. Well, guess what? Somebody who's prepared is going to step up in line.
Yes.
Okay. So be that guy and be the one taking that one-on-one rep at tackle. Be that Demetrius Thompson who's going to run the board and do every defensive position. I guarantee you he was able to do that because somebody was sitting back.
Exactly. And I can stand in there. I can tell you that happened exactly. KC Varsity Combine coming up this Saturday. Same thing. Don't want to hear from a parent who says, well, Johnny I don't feel like he got enough reps. That's Johnny who's not getting the reps because you guys are there helping run it, right? Elite football's there helping run it. Everybody's on an equal footing. There's zero favoritism. Nobody's
pushed. You're not telling people to do it. It's happening organically. And so,
correct.
Yeah, if we see a kid that butts every other rep, which we've had over the years, you calm that down. But the reality of it is that it's usually like every 5 or 6 reps. And the way it works is if a receiver is throwing with a particular quarterback and that receiver keeps jumping up or that quarterback keeps jumping up, you're going to see it happen. And so it'll happen at Lindenwood. I've watched it happen 100 times.
Yep.
It only happens though with guys that are confident in themselves. And the only people that do it have trained and are confident. It's not even like, I hate to say it, it's not even in the sense of like, hey, I have to do this because I want to show out. It's more like, oh, I'm up, I'm ready. You're good. I'm good.
Yeah.
That is more the adage is that I see is because I remember watching Gavin Marsh a couple years ago with Jack Albert, his quarterback. They were at Lindenwood, and it got to the point though where college coaches then were pushing up to the front of the line because he did it early, did a couple good routes, and then all of a sudden it was like, no, you come up there, and then he was pushed, and kids were getting pissed. But the college coaches at some point will just say, hey, I want to see that again. Or they're just enjoying watching it occur because they're fans of football and it's fun to watch. So, yeah, I would encourage kids to go back and look at our reels on there. We have a couple good reels where we talk about like kids sitting in the back of the line and then getting mad that they didn't get reps. That is not incumbent upon any one coach there to get you reps, especially when you get in the one-on-ones. We'll set them up in lines, monitor to make sure someone's not getting every other rep.
Right.
But once you're past that, you're big boys. You got to get your reps.
You and the KC Varsity and the elite coaches are there to make sure things run smoothly.
Yep.
And everything runs on time and everything runs. They're not there to hold anybody's particular hand. So if you're a parent or you're a player, get your reps. That's on you. That's up to you.
Mm-hmm. You have to do it.
Can't be said enough. Don't be intimidated. Even if you feel you're not on a skill level with these other guys you're seeing, because there's going to be a lot of talented guys there on Saturday. Say, well, I need to work, right? Look at it from a work perspective. You might see some guys go up there and do the one-handed grab and just the flip. You're going to see that. You're going to see some really, really talented guys, and especially the padded part, right? Linemen are padded on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not ready for that, then you got to question whether or not you're just ready to play football.
Well, and I think a lot of kids, unfortunately, and it's a confidence issue, which the only way you're going to gain confidence is to earn it, right? And do it. And I will tell you, I have witnessed kids on the receiver side get jammed and basically embarrassed, right?
Last night. Yep.
But I've also seen that same thing. The guy that's now doing it to somebody else someone did it to them.
Yeah.
Right now,
that's how they learn.
That's how you learn, right? And so I'll never forget. I think I might have mentioned this story a long time ago. Years ago, J.U. Chesson, Michigan, played at Michigan, went to the NFL, played with the Chiefs. He was at our facility, and it was a late afternoon, the 3:30 session, and there were some college guys back home, and he was good, man. He was like a sophomore, going to be a junior. And some dude I forget who it was, like a kid from Illinois State, jammed the piss on him. I mean, just violent, right? And then, Jay was trying to get off it, and then Brett Fisher's coaching him on it. And he got upset. And I remember his dad was like, they're being a little tough. I said, he's fine.
Yep.
This will benefit him down the line. We're not letting the guy accost him. He's not trying to beat him up, take his money.
Yep.
He's trying to jam him and not allow him the space that he wants to take. And that's it.
That is it.
And you fast forward, And now he's the guy, when the guy comes up and gets a little too close, he's grabbing him and throwing him and then taking off and, running. And,
Yeah.
He had a great career. But I think moments like that where you realize what the game you're playing is not nice. It's not soccer. It's not even basketball. It's not baseball.
Where you get
It's different. It's not track.
Yeah.
It's football, right? And, sure, there's other games like rugby that are really rough. Lacrosse can be rough, but hockey can be rough. But those are contact sports. And so I think the more you know that, the more you go in, the more confidence you can gain. But how do you do it? You train. If you just expect that 9 to 10 weeks you're with your team in the season to prepare you to be a football player, you're woefully mistaken.
Yep.
You're mistaken.
And the best way to overcome fear, if you're around a lot of talented guys and you're afraid you're not going to, match up, the biggest way to overcome fear is action.
No, yeah, 100%.
Action. You're scared, do it. And you, boom. You like, I did that. I lived. I made it through it. Okay, now I'm going to do it again. That's it.
Repeat.
Yeah.
So
there's still a few slots that you want to register online for KC Varsity, this week's KC Varsity Combine at Parkway West High School.
It ends on what? Thursday,
I think 6:00.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, sounds right, because you want to get your name on the roster for the college coaches that are attending. You can't still walk up day of, but your name's not going to be on the roster, and so all your data will go out.
JP, we had the last night's combine is a limited event.
Mm-hmm.
We can only take because we have a small window of time to get it in.
Yeah, was it like 2 hours?
2 hours. Yeah, maybe 2:10 last night, I think, because we got a few minutes early on the front end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think unfortunately people wait, and then it's like, oh crap. So we had probably 20 kids that could not attend, and then the other frustrating thing is you'll get kids that register and then no show.
That I don't understand that.
And short of a family emergency, short of an injury or an illness. But what are the odds that happens right before, I think sometimes guys just don't want it bad enough. And unfortunately, if you want to play college football, it's one thing to say you want offers and get offers. It's another thing to show up and play. I mean, the expectations on Jackson Cantwell right now, through the roof. He needs to come in. They're going to want him to start as a true freshman. They're probably paying him a lot of money.
That's
and the expectations are going to be through the roof. And
besides the weather, the money's probably pretty good.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Really imagine.
Yep. I mean, why go to the league? You might have to take a pay cut when
I know.
go to the league.
I know.
But it's
and taxing situation's better down there.
Exactly. You're absolutely right though. If you're like, oh, I can't come because I'm playing another sport or I'm working out or I've got to meet, and I don't even care. I don't care. I don't care who gets mad. I don't care if it's a district or what. You're gonna do track in high school. You're gonna do lacrosse. In college, you're gonna do track in college. You're gonna do lacrosse in college. You're gonna play baseball or you're gonna play football. At some point, you need to make that dedication to the sport.
So I have a question,
mm-hmm.
and I know the answer. And I know, okay, playing as a young athlete, play every sport you can play. Figure out what you're good at, learn different skills, learn how to compete. As you get into middle school, you start to kind of pare that back. And as you get deeper into high school, it pares back even more. And you will hear the argument, like, play every sport. Okay? It's good for you. That's what you should do.
Sure, when you're little.
Okay, I agree with that. But ask that college coach, if it's so good for you, why do they not, if it's so beneficial for you, why do they not let you play both sports in college? And what is the answer? The answer is they need you to concentrate on what you are and what they're paying you to do and what your scholarship's for. I can tell you, I've been involved with when there's a baseball player / football player, and that football coach and that baseball coach in college they may say they're going to play well together. I promise you, I've talked to Division I coaches who have told me they've got the high ranked pitching guy and baseball, whatever. He needs to make his mind up if he's going to be a football or baseball player,
yep.
Right? And so at some point, that annoyance of not being around when they need you there, because that's what your job is essentially. unfortunately, I think, it's a double standard. Well, yeah, we're going to hold it against you if you don't. But I would love, and I've said this numerous times, they always put up the number of kids that ran track and did different sports in high school, but they never tell you how many years they did it.
Exactly.
They never tell you what years they did it, right? And some guys are. There's guys that are 3-sport athletes. There's few and far between because it's hard to find those guys at the events where they're recruiting the other kids that are football players that they're going after that become, like Jackson Cantwell's a high level.
He's a nobody. He's a freak athlete.
Right.
Once in a generational type player prospect.
And he would probably be the same thing if he just played football, but his dad and his mother were Olympians, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's got the family business of throwing shot put,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So, but that's a rare one. The other guys that played basketball and football in high school that are now just playing football, it benefits them. But why, if it benefits them so much, why not do it in college? Because it doesn't benefit them in college.
Correct. And there's a lot of 6 foot to 6'4", 6'5" guys who probably should have played football instead of basketball, trying to take it into college.
Very true. I got lots of those guys.
Lots
I
of
know
stories.
you know a lot of those.
For another show, absolutely. For another show, we could. Right now we're rattling off the names in our brain, going like that. But anyway, we will see you on Saturday at Parkway West High School, KC Varsity Combine, KCVarsityCombine.com to find out about that. Anything elite related?
We do have combine training classes Thursday nights 7:30 and Saturdays at noon. I will tell you, if you don't like your scores, you don't like where you're at, or you're getting nervous about Lindenwood, you might as well start working on it. It's like taking the ACT prep. Get your prep in. Get your prep work in.
Without question. Congratulations to Jackson Cantwell, future Miami Hurricane. And that does it for us. You can catch me right there where it says JP Rock MO on X, JP Rock Scout U on Instagram, Mr. Matt Bierman.
Elite Football on X and Elite Football Academy on Instagram. And then the Football 360 Show.com is where all of it is.
Yep. All things Football 360, Spotify, Apple for just the podcast. Enjoyed ourselves as always. Thanks to Bogdan Susan. We're going to have him back. Great guests. And that does it for us. We will talk to you next week. See ya.